Hi, it's Christy of So to Speak, and welcome back to the Closet Series. The Closet Series was originally created right at the start of COVID, right here in my linen closet, and it started small. It was really to highlight local small businesses in our community in upstate New York, where I'm based, so that they could at least survive and ideally thrive, so that they could share their stories, so that they could connect with all of us on a human level, inspire us, and it naturally led to bringing in guests in our community who are leaders of different organizations, and then it expanded even more to bring in leaders in our country who are doing incredible work. Because it takes all of us, right? So you are a fly on the wall as the viewer, who ideally becomes inspired from our conversations, who gleans insight from our conversations, who is entertained from our conversations, and goes back into your corner of our world and does your part collaborating to help make our world a safer, stronger, and better place for all of us, because it takes all of us. And so I am super excited to bring to you today the first ever mini series. It's a 3-parter of the Closet Series. And we're going to be focusing on a topic that I believe we are all in dire need of strengthening right now. And it's heart-centered leadership. So we're going to be speaking with 3 different guests who are showing us how they are living heart-centered leadership and how they are doing heart-centered leadership within their own organizations and lives, and also how all 3 of these leaders are coming together and collaborating from a very heart-centered place to help make our world a safer, stronger, and better place for all of us. It's pretty awesome. So first up is Peter McGuinness, who is the President and Chief Operating Officer of Chobani. Yes, Chobani. You may think of them immediately of yogurt, and Chobani goes way beyond yogurt, beyond their product line. They have oat milk, and they have creamers, and they have probiotics now. Their creamer, their vanilla creamer, frothed, added to coffee, is delicious, by the way. So put that in your back pocket for later this afternoon or tomorrow morning. But Peter and I discuss beyond products, how they're also really living out loud the foundational core value that Chobani was really created on, which is being heart-centered, having humanity be at the base of all that they do, and how Peter does that as a leader, how Chobani does it as a company. And also, we have a very soft spot in our heart for Chobani, because this is where it all started, in upstate New York. Chobani has 2 plants, one of which is in Idaho, the other is in upstate New York. And they are practicing what they preach, Chobani is, by collaborating with 2 local nonprofits who are also doing incredible work. So the nonprofits that are local here in Utica, we're also going to be speaking to their representatives as part of this 3-part heart-centered leadership mini-series. And they are Shelley Callahan, the executive director of the center, formerly known as the Refugee Center of Utica, and Rachel Daughtry, who is the director of agency relations at the Compassion Coalition. So you want to make sure that you tune back in to check out our conversations with Shelley and Rachel as well, so that you can gain some insight into how to take what they do and make it your own in your own corner of our world. But for now, Peter McGuinness, please sit back, relax, and enjoy our conversation. Okay, so people in Utica, a lot of people are familiar with the fact that Chobani is local in addition to Idaho in New Berlin, like right a half an hour, 40 minutes outside of Utica. I had a small little cupcake company, and I wanted to have all local ingredients. And so Chobani was one of the yogurts that I used. And because it's just a little secret baker's note that it makes the cupcakes much richer. So I was really excited. So we went to—
And healthier.
And healthier as well. And so you guys, well, not you, but your team at the time would go to a local restaurant called Ancora, and they would have meetings there. And I walked in at one point, was introduced to your team. I was like, oh my gosh, I used Chobani in my cupcakes and love what you guys are doing. And not even like 2 weeks later, I had a huge case of yogurt at my door. Like they got my address somehow. And I was like, that was so generous. And, you know, when companies are new, chances are they're going to go above and beyond because they want to get their name out there as being generous. And
Sure.
I didn't, I would just at the time was like, oh, that's awesome. But fast forward to today, and the reason I even got more connected with you guys on LinkedIn is because I was watching what you guys were doing. The minute COVID happened, you guys were like hitting the street, like even prior to that, I'll get to in a minute. But I just want to give you guys kudos because I think it's huge that all of these years later, you guys aren't just sustaining that altruistic practice, but you're exceeding it. I think it's huge.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. I mean, it started from cup one. So this isn't something that, you know, I came to Chobani and created. It was there. It was very much in the culture and the essence of the company, really through Hamdi, right? So, you know, we started our foundation cup one when no one knew us, when no one was looking. So there was a purity to it. It wasn't like we woke up one day and said we should do good in the world. I think the company was created with that in mind. So that makes it special. And he probably was there, by the way, because he used to have an apartment in Utica way back when. But yeah, I think the pandemic, we did a lot of work with food banks and we were very active in the community, but we'd always been active in the community. We've always done that. So I don't think COVID changed us. I think we maybe just turbocharged and maybe doubled down on a lot of things we were already doing over many, many, many years. So I think it accelerated, but it's not like we woke up during COVID and said, I think it's time to do good in the world, and we're going to start now. I think we said the world needs us now more than ever. And I think people will be judged and businesses will be judged and brands will be judged on how they behave in this pandemic. And it's a really good time to even go deeper and go bigger on our commitments to the community, because, you know, communities all around the country need us more now than ever. And that's the lifeblood of America, our communities. And so that's why we accelerated, and that's probably why you saw it, because we just felt like, you know, the world needed us and we were going to do our small part. Now, we're a small yogurt company that now makes oat milk and creamer. We're not going to change the world. We're not going to fix all the problems, but I think we can do our part. And I think if more businesses took that attitude and they did their small part in a genuine, authentic way, that aggregation could make a huge difference. And I think, and when private joins with public sector for good, it can be quite powerful. We just need more private companies to step up and be good community citizens and genuinely try to make the world a better place. And that way, if more businesses did that, combined with collaboration with the public sector, I think you could really move the needle. I think you can make a big difference in a meaningful, big way.
Why I originally had reached out to you about really focusing on just that genuine sense of heart-centered leadership that we're seeing more of right now. But I guess the first question is like, how would you, what you were saying is so heart-centered, but I'm wondering, like, if you were to define heart-centered leadership, what would it be?
Humanity. And that's actually how I would describe Chobani. There's lots of different words and mission statements and vision statements. If I could boil it down to one word, it's humanity. And I know humanity's tossed about, but humanity at its core is just doing the right thing regardless of profit, regardless of popularity, regardless of how difficult it is and how time consuming it is. And, you know, I think Chobani's always done right by its people and its employees and its communities. And I think, you know, it's interesting. A lot of people will say, well, a lot of these programs cost so much money. Humanity and business are mutually inclusive. They're not competing theories. And in fact, if you go down that human road, your employees are healthier, they're happier, they're more productive. You'll excel more, you'll compete better in the marketplace, you'll kick your competitors' butts more. And so a lot of people think like, wow, it's just a lot of money. Like you're doing all this stuff and support programs and safety programs to, and it's just the entirely wrong way to look at things. The better you take care of your employees and the better you take care of your communities, the more rewarding it is, and the higher you perform as a business and brand. And I think that's a big insight that needs to be recognized for a lot of business leaders out there. And you can be altruistic, you can be philanthropic, but you can hate your competition and want to win in the marketplace. It used to be like, hey, there's those feel-good companies, and then there are those nasty companies that will do anything to win and succeed. You can be both. We call it warrior shepherd, right? So Chobani means shepherd in Turkish. We never really talk about it. And so we are shepherds. And shepherds in Turkey specifically, up in the mountains in Eastern Turkey where Hamdi's from, they would give you your shirt, they would give you their shirt off your back. They would help with livestock and flocks and things like that. And they never wanted anything in return. It's just completely unconditional. And that's really what defines shepherd. Taking care of your brothers and sisters and your neighbors and your family and your employees and wanting nothing in return. But we have this warrior side too. We hate our competition. We hate big food. We think most food's made awful. And we want access. We want people to have access to better food. And we want to win. I mean, we've designed a whole company around competing. And so that warrior side comes a lot. And we're the same company, and we're the same people, and we're the same leaders. And I think you can be a warrior and a shepherd. And it's a false choice to think you have to be one or the other. And that's what we strive to do. And sometimes we're in a zone right now. I think with COVID, we've been a little bit more in the shepherd area. And you start to see a little bit more of the warrior come out in us recently. But both are very, very much alive culturally in the company. And I think that gives us an edge. I think I really do. And that's the beauty of it. Also keeps it quite interesting.
So got that down to a science pretty much. So if you were going to give advice to companies who, not saying they're doing like a 180, but they knew it was really important to be more heart-centered and more altruistic, and COVID really amped that up for them, for them to be like, wow, we've kind of been sitting on this and not really doing anything about it. What would be one of the first steps that you would recommend people taking to make the change?
Yeah, don't worry about short-term profits, because heart-first marketing, heart-first companies will outperform heartless companies over time. Maybe not next month, maybe not next quarter. And I think what people do is they take the short-term view. Now, I'm under no illusion, we're a private company. So we have the luxury of taking a long-term view. So I know a lot of companies out there are public companies, and they have to, put out quarterly earnings, and they have a lot of cost pressure and a lot of profit pressure, and they have shareholders. I get it. But leading with your heart versus being heartless wins every time, because you win over the consumer, and the consumer rewards you with their wallet or their credit card or their debit card. And it's a matter of time before heart-led brands rise to the top. And so it's very easy to say, we can't afford to do it, or we don't have the time to do it, or we have all this cost pressure to make our numbers for the quarter or for this year. So we're just going to push it and kick it down the road. And then you just keep, then it never happens, and you never change and evolve. And then you become less relevant. The other thing I would say is brands are porous. They're not one way anymore. They haven't been for a very long time. And People prefer brands with hearts, companies with hearts. People want to know who makes their products that they eat every day. And they can do research and they will get inside your company and brand and figure out what they like or what they don't like. And everybody likes companies that do good. Now, of course, you have to make a good product first and foremost. If you don't make a good quality product, then you don't even have permission to go into that altruistic area, because what are we talking about here? It doesn't matter. But if you make a great product in a high quality way and make that accessible to everybody, then you can go into that area and do good in the world beyond the products you make and transcend the products you make. And you will get the consumer preference, you'll get the consumer affinity, you'll get the long-term love, and it will pay dividends over time. Maybe not Q1, maybe not Q2, maybe year two. So be courageous enough to go for it, right? And manage your stakeholders and your shareholders, their expectations, so that you can get on this road. I think my advice would be, it's not easy, but stop with the excuses. It can be done. And it can be done in a way that respects your business, doesn't obliterate your profit, but you start to do more good in the world. And you can do it all. And it can be phased over time. And it can be budgeted over time, but get yourself on the road, get yourself on a path to being better.
Prior to coming to Chobani, you were in advertising for decades. You were running companies all over the world, pretty much. And do you feel like you were always a heart-centered leader?
Yeah, I felt like I always had it in me. Advertising was a very cutthroat business, and it was a very bottom line driven business. And the plight of advertising is kind of a sad one, in the sense that all these wonderful, independent, highly creative agencies got bought up by holding companies, which are publicly traded. And when you sell to a holding company, it would be like us selling to, Coca-Cola or Unilever, right? Your company is going to change. Mm-hmm. Cultural change. Mm-hmm. Expectations will change. And so when all that consolidation occurred, advertising wasn't what it was. It wasn't based on creativity. It wasn't based on ideation and with reckless abandon. And it was bottom line, and it was bill your time, and it was win as many pieces of new business as you could, collect the money. And powered through it for a long, long time, and ran agencies in New York and Chicago and all throughout Europe. But it wasn't, it wasn't as fun as it once was. And it wasn't as pure. When it's not about creativity and pure brand building and helping clients regardless, and it's more about the billable hour, and the hunt for the next client. And by the way, the hunt for the next client screws you up with your current clients, because you're devoting all your time in search of something else instead of not appreciating what you have. I just didn't like it anymore. So I was always a leader that derived more enjoyment about people growing than myself. And so I always had that piece. But running an ad agency, we didn't do a lot of community work like we're doing now with Chobani. We weren't working with food banks, and we didn't turn our cafe into a food bank, and we weren't doing food incubators. So there was a lot less opportunity. It's not that it wasn't in me, there was just less opportunity to do it. I've been out of that business for 7 years. It seems like a long, long time. I've been at Chobani for 7. I've known about Chobani for 11, because I ran the agency and we pitched and won the Chobani business, did most of the original branding work for it. So I've known the brand and the business for about 11 years, very, very closely and intimately. I've known Hamdi, the founder, for 11 years, but I've only worked there 7, and it's been a long 7. It is dog years. It feels much longer than that. And been through a lot and done a lot, and we've had our ups and downs and all arounds. It has not been a perfect 7 years. It has not been a linear 7 years by any stretch of the imagination. But we're at a place now that's a bit of a state of grace. We have the right investors. We have our privacy. We're private. And we can pursue our dreams and visions. We're not quarterly driven. We have long-term investors that love what we do and love what the brand stands for and support our altruism and philanthropy. So we don't have a lot of that pressure. So we can be innovative now. We can be creative. We can be community-oriented. Really nothing in our way. There's no one stopping us. We don't have any barriers or hurdles, which is a beautiful place to be. So it took a long time to get there. And sometimes Hamdi and I joke, we're like, we've waited for so long to get to this place where we can have unbridled creativity. We can have crazy innovation. We can just launch as much stuff as we want. Who cares? Just let's get it out there. We just launched this Chobani probiotic beverage right here. This is lemon.
Such a beautiful bottle.
Yeah, and 15 billion probiotics proven to boost your immune system. And it's a fermented plant-based drink. Beautiful. But we're just putting stuff out there, and the brand can travel and the brand can stretch, and we have permission to go beyond yogurt. Oat milk. We're #2 in U.S. food in oat milk in 8 months, when other companies have been doing it for 18 years. So it's fun. It's a fun time. It's not without its challenges. I'm sitting here in a plant, full health screeners, multiple temperature checks, multiple sanitary checks. We're in communities where there's a lot of community COVID spread. And so it's not easy. I mean, we have to keep our workers safe. I look at the plants as our cathedrals. We're a manufacturing company. It all started in South Edmonston, not far from you in Utica. And now we're in Idaho. And we're trying to keep everybody safe. We have not had a day of interruption. These plants have run 24/7 since the pandemic started. I'm very, very proud of that because we took it very, very seriously. And we wanted the plants to be the safest place in your day, right? Safer than the grocery store, safer than wherever else you're going to go. So that when people came here for a 12-hour shift in a pandemic and we're asking them to wear a mask, they could be rest assured that we took it very, very seriously. Mm-hmm. So we haven't had any walkouts or unionization or anything like that because we took care of our employees. Mm-hmm. Supported them, we paid for their childcare, then we kept them safe. We were doing masks third week of March when the Surgeon General and the CDC was saying, don't wear a mask. Made it mandatory. And so these are the things, right? Do the right thing regardless, right? Regardless of what it costs, regardless if it's popular or not. And masks were not popular. So when we mandated masks in third week of, not popular. Try wearing a mask 12 hours a day as a plant worker. It's very hard. And then you're wearing safety goggles, which fog up. And so very, very hard. But, people got behind it because they care about their coworkers, they care about the company, they care about the brand. Mm-hmm. And if we don't keep the plants running 24 hours a day, we can't do as much good in the world. So it's all interconnected. Kind of a capitalism thing with an altruism thing are totally connected. The more successful we are, the more we can use our profits and our resources to try and make society better and the world a better place. So
the interconnectedness you can hear right away, especially when you talk about the investors who believe in what you guys are doing, that naturally gives you guys even more momentum and inspiration to know that you have that backing. Sure. And then your employees are are totally bought in, obviously. Like you had no walk-offs and they just are bought into the mission, it sounds like, of who Chobani is.
Yeah, I think it runs, and I make fun of this sometimes. Big companies have corporate social responsibility departments. And I'm always like, what the hell is that? A department? And they're doing that to make themselves feel better, right? Or to deflect their declining business, or deflect the fact that they're not innovative and creative, or deflect the fact they're not relevant to young people. A department, it's either in the veins of your business and your company, it either courses through the veins of the company and is naturally found in the culture, or it's complete BS, right? One of the great things about Chobani, and again, I think, this started from day one with Hamdi, it's just part of who we are. Mm-hmm. It's sustainable, it's palpable, mm-hmm. And you said it well, it's everybody's in. Everybody's all in. Being in this factory right now, I see the pride in how everybody makes the product, right? We're food makers in the end of the day. Tremendous pride. And when those cases get palletized and they go off into a truck, and there's the hero batch, which is donating, money to veterans, or the farmer batch donating, to dairy farmers, and dairy farms are closing down all across the country. It is a crisis. No one's talking about it. You can see everybody perk up. But then when they hear the good we do in Magic Valley and in upstate New York, and we share this a couple times a week to the company, they love it. They love it. The company loves the good we do. Mm-hmm. Then you have a more motivated workforce. You have a workforce that's more prideful in terms of where they work, that are more motivated. And throughout this pandemic, we were doing pulse checks because it's very hard. Other than the plants, we're 100% online like everybody else is. How do you keep people motivated? How do you keep people connected in a pandemic when you don't see anybody? And we do it through doing good. And so we had like 93% satisfaction with our employees in the middle of a pandemic about feeling good about the company, feeling connected, being proud of the good we're doing in the world.
Can we pause there? Like, that's a huge deal. So I just feel like there are a few things you've said that you're very humbly passing by. Like, one of them was that you guys are paying for childcare for your employees. That's huge. I think that's worth pausing on for a second, because that's not the norm. We don't hear that all the time. What does that look like for any employer out there? Like, just what does that look like? I feel like this is a huge problem in the workforce, pre-COVID or COVID. So like, just flesh that out a little bit.
It's a massive problem. And it's gripping the nation, actually. This homeschool thing. You have an hourly job. You have to work. And your kids are home. How does that work? It doesn't work, right? And you have an hourly job, so it's not like you have an abundance of money sitting around or massive savings. And how does that work? It doesn't work. That's the answer. So we decided to subsidize childcare. We paid up to $100 a day, and it was a big investment, but the return on that investment, not that I'm looking for a return on investment in a clinical, cynical way, was exponential, because we helped solve a problem, right, for our employees. And it was weighing on their mind. It was getting in the way of them being productive. And as an employer, why can't we help? And if we help, they'll help us through being motivated, being productive, showing up to work, mass absenteeism. And so that's another fault. Like, why wouldn't every company do that? You know, I'm not trying to push Chobani on everybody. We're different. And I'm not trying to say we're better than other companies. There's so many great companies out there. But what I am saying is, in challenging times, that's when you build new muscle and you try to be creative and scrappy in terms of trying to help your employees. And that came very natural to us. We just said, look, this is a problem. We have the ability to solve that problem. And it'll cost us, but how much profit is too much profit in the pandemic? I don't think I get yelled at as president of Chobani for under-delivering profit, not saying I am or not, in a pandemic. Nor do I think as an essential food company, because we're not airlines and stuff like that, so we're operating, do I get credit for exceeding profit in a pandemic. So just do the right thing. Mm-hmm. And in doing that, you endear yourself to your employees, and they'll be loyal for years to come, and you'll have less attrition, and higher loyalty and higher productivity, and that's a dividend over time. And then your consumers see what you're doing. They become more loyal over time. And that's a dividend that pays out over time. So I go back to the central point: doing the right thing and competing in business are not at all at odds. In fact, they can be inextricably linked if done well and properly.
Yes, to all of that. And to even take it out even more, like when you were saying about interconnectedness before. So even just saying with like the way that you're treating your employees, specifically with the paid childcare, right? So mom or dad are less stressed out. So their kids perform better in school. They're more alert. It ripples out to the community. So then the teachers are feeling better because they have students who are in the classroom who are paying attention. Then their friends are feeling better, parents' friends and kids' friends. Like it's a huge ripple out, because the way you show up is paramount in regards to how you affect other people who come into your circle, which inevitably ripples out to everybody's circle. So yes, I understand the profit side of it in regards to like business, and in regards to consumers seeing that and customers seeing what Chobani stands for and wanting to get behind that. Because I heard you say in another talk that you had a lot of customers who were like, I love Chobani, I love their mission, I just don't drink dairy, make something else and I'll buy it, right? And so you guys obviously took that and ran with it, which is awesome. But yeah, I think it's important just to write home that no, not everybody's supposed to be Chobani. That would be ridiculous. It's just not. In regards to being inspired by brands, that's one thing, but you have to make your markets as your own, but you can do it in a way that does see the bigger picture and kind of zooms out to the macro level of, by doing this, it actually does affect the whole world. Like it does, because people show up if they're happier, if they're more inspired, if they're less stressed. It boosts their immunity. So all you need is one of Chobani's probiotics in addition, and then your immunity is like through the roof.
Through the roof.
Through the roof.
You know, you said it well. You said it better than I did. And that's what I meant to say. You hope to inspire. You hope to inspire others. Whether they adopt it or adapt it is another thing. But if you can inspire people along the way, that's a beautiful thing. Not push your way, because our way is not someone else's way. And it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. But if you can, you know, share your stories in a humble, authentic way and inspire people along the way, that's pretty damn good. Sure.
How Matters has always been really huge for Chobani. Like I remember you just doing the research and consistent talks that you were giving or conversations you were having. It was really about the food and how you're making the food and having it be nutritious and having it be clean food. And I just wonder how you see that transitioning or correlating in regards to, yes, that matters significantly.
Sure.
And also how are you enforcing or modeling the heart-centered leadership in regards to like how you do it? So like I feel like you talked about like big picture in a way, but like, how do you feel like you're doing, especially to tie into this, if I can give you like a part A, part B to this question. So it's the how, but it's also like, you know, you guys have people who you're doing the remote and hybrid. You have all the people at the plant who have to be on site, and then you have people who are working from home. So how are you able to model that heart-centered leadership of empathy and transparency while keeping an engagement with your team? You had a significant engagement. You said 93%. That's incredible.
Yeah. Well, look, the How Matters originally was a notion around the food we make. So how you make food matters. How you source the ingredients matters. How you treat the environment in your food making process matters, right? So it was a little bit more food centric of a thought, but it really always was a double entendre. You know, how you behave matters, how you lead matters. And so it was always meant to be bigger. And that's why I said earlier, I said, you know, how people behave. I said, I think we're all being figuratively filmed in this pandemic. not literally, but people are watching how companies are behaving. And if they're piggish, it's not going to bode well long term. If they're doing the right thing in a very non-exploitive, non-commercial, genuine way, they will be rewarded. People are watching, right? And all across the country. So how you behave in a pandemic matters. And we took that to heart, which is why we upped our, we did the partnership with Feeding America, but for us, it was, we're a food maker. So let's give as much food away as possible, right? And food banks are these lighthouses across the country. And we've always had relationships with food banks. And now there's a run on food banks everywhere, whether it's Texas, Long Island. I went to one in Long Island. It was unbelievable. We did a lot of food bank. We sent a truck a day of product, fresh product, not coated product, fresh made product. By the way, we were having a hard time keeping up with demand, right, in a pandemic. And then we asked our factory workers and our logistics and distribution people to make more product to give away. And they were absolutely fine with it. When we couldn't even we were having a hard time keeping up with demand of paying customers. But a truck a day went to different parts of the country, and we tracked those trucks, and they were based on where the need was most profound in that day or week. Then we did a food bank batch where we developed food during the pandemic, start to finish in 3 months. And 100% of those proceeds went to Feeding America. And it was peanut butter and jelly. It was a beautiful new product we've never made before. And 100% profits went to Feeding America, which is beautiful. Then we turned our cafe into a food pantry, which was essentially a food bank in Soho. And we stayed open the entire time, and we just gave away food. And I went down there once a week, sometimes twice a week, to be there with the team. And, and how you lead matters, right? So I went to West Point, I went to upstate New York and gave away product to local hospitals in and around Utica, Norwich, South Edmonton. So I think you have to be present as a leader. And I didn't want to ask anyone in the company to do something I wouldn't do myself. Mm-hmm. I think that's very, very important. So you must, lead being out there and being part of it, and not lead from home or, from a screen all the time. So that was amazing, because people would just stop us and say, "What are you doing? Why are you giving away this food?" And we said, because, and they would try to pay for it. And, we're just, Soho's wounded. Soho's hurt. We love Soho. We have our corporate offices there. We have our cafe there. And we just want to help the community. Then we got our incubator companies, who were also hurting, because they're small companies, right? 36 companies, by the way. And I'm proud to say that the vast majority of them are minority, whether it be gender, race, or ethnicity. Amazing story there. I don't want to go too deep on the incubator. But these are smaller companies that, were struggling to thrive as it was. That's why they were in the food incubator. They donated a bunch of products. So suddenly we were donating like full gift baskets, oat milks, creamers, yogurts. We had applesauces. We had fruit pouches. We had hummuses. I mean, you name it. And we would just give away full bags of food. And people were like, what? Then came protests and riots, and we stayed open. So all of Soho was boarded up. We never boarded up. And look, if the windows broke, the windows broke. And so we fed people, we fed protesters, we fed police, we fed, which was great every day, the UPS driver, the FedEx guy, firemen. And then we fed local store owners that were boarding up their stores, and they forgot to pack lunch. It was unbelievable. It was cathartic. And I got to say, the other thing, times are tough, and there's so much going on, and depression's high, and moods are down. Because if you're human, how can you not be affected by all of this? Doing good was such a way to feel better. It was very uplifting. It's uplifting to your spirit. So not only are you doing good for somebody, you're actually doing good for yourself in the process. which is something I never fully realized until, I did a lot of the food bank stuff and a lot of the pantry stuff in Soho. And then, of course, we do a special bonus for our plant workers during the pandemic because they deserve it. And then we pay childcare. So we did a number of things. We didn't really talk about it too much. We didn't really promote it too much. If you found out about it, you found out about it. It was never really the intent to get noticed or recognized for it. And then you asked about food shaming, lunch shaming, and that was pre-pandemic. And literally that happened organically. And this gets back to, it's just the type of company you are. So we're all in Soho, and a group of folks came up to me and said, there's this lunch shaming thing going on. It's just not right. And I was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I haven't heard about it. So we dig into it, and it is a pandemic in and of itself. And so it first started in Rhode Island, and it got some attention. And all we did is we called the mayor of Rhode Island and agreed to pay the lunch debt. It was $50,000. He accepted the money. It's a small amount of money. We didn't end it. We didn't fix it. We didn't solve it. They needed it. We gave it to them. And it became a national news story. And it took us by surprise. It just went viral that Chobani would do that. And then we dug into it deeper, and we realized it's in every community. There's this lunch debt. So what does that mean? That means that parents and children without economic means run into problems at some point in the school year with paying for their lunch. And when that money runs out and that does not get repaid, they get essentially cut off. Mm-hmm. So un-American and inhumane. And they get cut off in an awful, awful way. So imagine that you're on the line and everyone has their trays of food, and you get to the point of checkout and you're told you can't have that hot meal because your bill is not paid. And because of health and safety, they literally take the food away from you because they can't reserve it.
Oh my God, it's awful.
In front of everybody, and they give you a cold sandwich. Mm-hmm. Then you go out into the cafeteria and you're sitting at tables. And then people can see people with a cold sandwich, cold jelly sandwich, and people with a hot lunch. So the poor people, the people with money. And imagine that when the cafeteria in and of itself, I vaguely remember it in high school, but it's a tough place, or grade school, right? To fit in, and who's going to sit with who, and who's going to, so there's all this pressure, and then that gets amplified 100-fold because you're sitting there with a cold jelly sandwich that everybody knows what that means, right? So then they get further isolated and more alienated and essentially shamed because their parents don't have the means to pay. And I think that's utterly insane and utterly un-American. And bring it up to the parents. Don't punish the kid at school. It's insane. So it started innocently with us just paying the $50,000 in Rhode Island, paying it. It goes viral. We dig into it. I go to Washington to meet with the senators, and we lobby against it. And we do a big thing in Washington. We realize that the problem's massive, tens of billions of dollars to make this go away. So we're under no illusion about our ability to solve it. We can't solve it. Can we shine a light on it? Can we raise awareness of the issue? Sure we can, right? We can make more people aware of it, but we can't solve it. I mean, it's a massive governmental multi-million-dollar thing. So then we paid the lunch debt in upstate New York, in and around our plant, and then we paid the lunch debt here. And we're very quiet about it. Problem with that is it takes care of the semester, and then it happens again. So you just can't. There's no, you have to step back and kind of take another look at it and try to work with the government officials to try to get this thing solved on a macro level. And we need funding and we need budget for it. And it has to come through the federal government, into the states, into the communities, into the schools. But it was just one example of, so we're still in it big time, and we're partnering with many senators and Congress folks on both sides of the aisle. It's actually one of the things that's not partisan, because how could you argue with this? I mean, it's crazy. So, I think at some point we're hopeful we can get a bill through to solve this, and we'll do our part to help. And I think, that's about all we can do.
So if everything stayed the same, nobody wants it to, but if everything stayed the same, right?
Definitely nobody wants it to.
Nobody wants that, but let's just go worst case scenario. So everything stays the same. In addition to empathy, what is the one trait that leaders need to embody to get through it?
Generosity. And I mean that in a very multidimensional way. I mean it in spirit. I mean it in resources. I mean it in time. A leader should be generous with his or her time to help his or her people and employees. They should be generous with the company's resources in order to keep them safe and support them. They should be generous to the community in and around where they operate, because that's the lifeblood, right? And a generosity, and they should be generous in spirit. It should be uplifting. And I think in good times and bad, the best thing you can do is be generous and a bit selfless. And that's what comes with leadership. I mean, that's what you got to do. And it's not about you. And I think that's a struggle, right? I struggled with it because I was a practitioner, and I was expert in the subject matter, and I could joust with anybody on stuff, and and I don't know as much about the plants as my head of supply chain, and I don't want to know, and I don't know as much about all of our customers and sales as my head of sales. Sometimes I feel vulnerable about that, but I'm there to support them. They know. I don't want to micromanage them. I don't want to duplicate what they do. I'm there to support them so that they can be their best. That's a transition that not all leaders make. So, and I think now it's needed more than ever, right? So, my not so short answer, because I had to dimensionalize it, is be generous.
Well, speaking of generosity, that's a beautiful segue. So thank you for being so intuitive there in regards to what Chobani is doing locally, specifically with Utica. You guys are pairing up with two fantastic nonprofits here. One is run by Shelley Callahan, the center, because you guys I have down 30% of your local,
roughly
around that,
yep.
Which is incredible. Like, that's incredible. And then also with Rachel Daughtry over at the Compassion Coalition. So can you just speak to both of those organizations and what Chobani is doing with them?
Yeah, and let's back up. So Utica is a special place, period, but it's a special place to us.
You heard it here first, everybody.
And it's a very special place to Chobani because a lot of our refugee population does live in Utica, but a lot of our employees live in and around Utica. And the refugee center work goes way back. And this is another example of solving challenges. And where there's a will, there's a way, right? And it's like the childcare thing. It's like the food bank thing. Hamdi started the plant in upstate New York. It was an old craft plant, shuttered, shut down, shockwaves through the community. Bought it with a small business loan. Great American story. We've heard that story. It's a beautiful American entrepreneur story. Didn't really know how to make yogurt. Didn't really know how to operate a plant. Needed to renovate that plant, and needed to start making and selling product quickly. right? It's not like he had a lifeline or amounts of money. And there was a shortage of available workforce at the time. And so he's an entrepreneur, scrappy, creative, and he was like, oh, there's a whole population of people that are hardworking and amazing. Oh, no, you can't have refugees work for you. Well, why not? Well, they don't speak English. I get translators. They don't have cars. I get buses. I mean, you can, if you let excuses get in the way or you let challenges hinder your ability to get things done, you know, you're not going to be entrepreneur of the year or the world. And so he figured out a way. And you know what? Amazing people, beautiful community, intensely loyal, craftsmen, craftswomen. They make great, they take their job very, very seriously, have tremendous pride. And so this goes back 11 years. So Utica is not just some new, you know, special place in Chobani's heart. Mm-hmm. Fast forward the movie, in COVID, we partnered with the Department of Health and we partnered with the Refugee Center to get more people tested. There was community spread. We wanted to keep people safe. We didn't want any one person or people to be blamed for a spread. And we said, and this is private public sector, we said, let's get together and let's get people tested. Let's keep people safe. And we also partnered with the Baptist Church of Utica. And we destigmatized testing. Testing has a massive stigma around it. And we didn't fully know that. And Shelley was very insightful in sharing just how people felt about it. So we did it at the Baptist Church. We promoted it through the church. We promoted it through the Refugee Center, and we promoted it. Because the Department of Health knows how to administer the test, but they don't know how to do anything. And this is no disrespect, not their thing. They don't know how to throw an event to get as many people tested as possible. So they had done some testing, and you had 50 or 100 people show up. We had 700. We promoted it. We gave away free yogurt. We gave away free masks. We gave away hand sanitizer. We gave away food. And we partnered with the local restaurant. I can't remember the name of it. The guy's a total character. And we gave away falafels. And you know, and we figured out the parking, and we had volunteers come from Chobani to make sure that the flow of people were safe and distanced. And we did tents because it was hot in the sun. So we thought about all this stuff. So we got 700 people tested. And so it was one of the, and I think there's a national model in there. We didn't really push it too hard. We didn't talk about it that much, but it was a beautiful way where private public sectors came together on behalf of a community to keep people safe. And I think there's nothing, you know, there's nothing more pure than that. So we got reconnected with Shelley, and, you know, I toured the Refugee Center, and because of COVID and politics that I don't want to get into, there's less refugees coming, and it's a real shame, and I don't want to go down, you know, deep into that, but I just deeply disagree with a lot of things that are happening, and I hope it changes. And so we just renewed our commitment to the center itself, because we didn't realize how much that center really means to the community and the refugee population, even after they have a job and even after they're here in Utica. And so we're going to do a bunch of things with Shelley and the Refugee Center, from bikes to a bunch of other things. And then we came across the Compassion Coalition, and I'm just like, what is going on in this town? This Rust Belt town that has this cool vibe to it and has an interesting food scene and brewery scene, but yet they're doing all this good. And so we went up a few weeks ago and met with them, and we went to the bargain grocery store, and it's in a pretty rough neighborhood, and met the family, and it's a family operation. It's completely selfless. And it's this beautiful little store. I walked in and didn't know what to expect. It's like a Trader Joe's. It's somewhere between a Whole Foods and a Trader Joe's, where you can not have money and shop with dignity. I was like, wow, this is another like national model here. Like, why can't, like, Utica is this hotbed for doing good, but that could be translated to many other communities It's a scalable, these things are scalable. Anyway, we went through, and it's high quality produce. It's high quality meat. They had Bill and Evans chicken, which is like super premium chicken for like $1. And then I went and saw their warehouse, and then I went and saw their school supply store, and then they're giving school supplies away to, there's teachers in there. I'm like, you guys are unbelievable. And he's been doing it for 20 years. So it's not like it's new, but he keeps making it better. And they have a new warehouse, and they have the new store, and they want to open up in Albany next, and they want to open up in the Bronx. Bronx is a very special place, near and dear to my heart, family there. And I'm just so impressed, right? And so in 5 minutes, it was kind of like you had me at hello, but it was in 5 minutes, we were just like, I said, look, you have our commitment. We're going to help in any way we can. And they're very crafty. So they'll get product from local Walmart, they'll get product from local Target, and it's good, high quality product. They'll get returns from Costco that haven't even been used. Very, very high end items, and they'll sell it for a fraction. And I said, so what's preventing people with money from coming in? And he said, nothing. He's like, our doors are open. I'm not going to discriminate. He's like, but I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. I think people will do the right thing. Do we have some people with money that come in here? Yeah, but it's the exception, not the norm. I'd rather keep the doors open and the cards will fall where they fall, right? And chips will fall where they fall. It's a beautiful sentiment. And so we're going to give them product at cost, and we'll also give them some Expire Donate product. And then we're also going to help them with labor. So we have a program called Chobani Gives, and it's a whole program around giving time. And a lot of our people do it in hurricane relief, fire relief, disaster relief. And so we're going to include them in Chobani Gives because they need labor. They need people to just come up there and help. And so I'm going to push not only the Norwich office, but the South Edmondson plant to really go up there and volunteer time because they actually just need a lot of time. They need product, but they need time. Mm-hmm. And that was just the 2-3 things we kicked around in, a visit, right? But we're going to have a long, we're going to have a long storied partnership. I can tell you that because I really, when you meet some people and they're pure and they're good and they're selfless and they're the real deal. That's how Mark and I felt when we met them. And so that's a 3-week-old relationship, and we're off to the races, and we're happy to do it. So I left Utica feeling, there's just something going on in this town. I can't quite figure it out, but it's good. It's good for Chobani, but it's an example for all of us.
Doing what the Compassion Coalition is doing is something that people see in other towns in the country and do it as well. And that was a huge part of why Rachel was asked to come on the show too, is like when she and I were talking prior to having her come on, which she'll be on in a few weeks, it was like, the goal too is for other people who come across the series to be inspired. That's the whole point of the series in general, is for people to watch it and be inspired to do more good in the world. And that's exactly what she and I ended up talking about, is like, if someone in Nebraska or Washington sees this and is like, oh my gosh, I want to get in touch with Rachel and just understand how the business plan works or how she just got it off and running. Like that's the point. So
I'll tell you one other thing, the connectivity in Utica is unbelievable. So it seems like all roads go to Shelley. It's very funny. I joke around with her. Because then I ask, do you know Shelley? Of course I know Shelley. So they actually, in the Compassion Coalition, in doing what they do and being very scrappy and reaching out to lots of national brands, but the local outposts of national brands, they have access to furniture and beds and sheets and cleaning supplies. And a lot of the refugees, when they first get settled, they need furniture. Mm-hmm. So they work with Shelley to provide essential items to help refugees get assimilated. So it's all, it's all connected in some way, shape, or form. Like goodness has a way of permeating communities and connecting lots of different people and businesses. So it was very cool. And by no means am I an expert. This is two different days. I've been to Utica twice. So I'm not an expert, but I feel like I got a pretty good sense of it all. I don't have a PhD in it yet, but I'm working on it though. But a wonderful community, and we're happy to help and be a part of it. And I think this is just the beginning. I really do.
We hear how COVID has done things to us. What has COVID done for you? One thing.
I think what COVID did for me is perspective. And I know it's an overused word, but it gave me a lot of perspective because it's deeply personal.
Mm-hmm.
It has affected everybody, whether you're a little more well off, whether you're not as well off. And there's no like, it affects me more than you. It's different. It's personal. It's affected everyone in a deeply, profoundly personal way. And we all have to realize that, whether you're a business leader, whether you're a neighbor, whether you're a friend, whether you're a wife, whether you're a husband, father, mother, everybody's going through a lot of stuff right now. And we have to have that perspective. Without it, it's just completely ridiculous and tone deaf. But I think it taught me perspective. And within that perspective, don't take things for granted. Try and look at the bright side of things, because if you're hurting, so many people are also hurting, and maybe in deeper and bigger ways. And so, you could go with challenge and you could go with resilience and all those other words. For me, it's perspective. And I think perspective is the key to empathy. It's the key to sympathy. It's the key to action, right? It's the key to making people feel better, supporting people. If you don't have that perspective, you're not going to have that passion. I think people that are amplifying stories and telling stories and care to tell stories of good and find people and find creative ways to tell stories, like in a closet, are really important. I think storytelling is more important now than ever. I think people need inspiration now more than ever. I think people need examples more than ever to follow or not follow. Mm-hmm. So I think it's wonderful what you're doing. I think keep doing it, keep getting stories out there in the hopes of inspiring people to be better and more courageous and more creative. I think it's super important now. I mean, it's always been a wonderful thing to do, but I think now it's vital. Mm-hmm. Love what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. We love what you guys are doing too. So it's a mutual love.
I was happy to be on.